If you're struggling with anxiety, you may be thinking anxiety is more focused on being hyperactive, having this adrenaline rush, getting panic attacks, being always alert. But if you're struggling with anxiety, you may also notice you're feeling really tired a lot. You may be feeling very exhausted, very lethargic, that even a basic day can feel absolutely exhausting and tiring. Well, why is that? Is it anxiety, or is it possible that you may be having something else? Well, in this video, I want to talk about how anxiety actually also creates these other symptoms, so that if you can understand how anxiety also creates these other symptoms and the mechanics behind it, well, then you know it's part of the recovery journey. And if you focus on a few things, you can really overcome this as well and just get to true freedom. So pay attention. So when I first developed anxiety, when I had my first panic attack, I was alert. I was on high alert and I had this adrenaline rush a little bit too much. I felt like I had too much energy. I felt like I could run, I could do anything. And I had this high level of anxiety. I had this excess energy. But what happened is that as I was struggling with anxiety, as the anxiety became more chronic, I got really tired. Like, I wouldn't do anything all day. And then when I'd go to bed, I felt like I'd ran a marathon. And so when I was struggling with anxiety, I kind of didn't understand. Well, I thought anxiety was about being alert, by being on kind of having like this adrenaline rush. Yet I was feeling tired. I was feeling exhausted. And so, naturally I went to doctors. They said that I was fine. Went to therapists, said, it's anxiety. But I still didn't really understand it. I'd even go to naturopathic doctors, and I remember one had diagnosed me with adrenal fatigue, and I remember thinking, wow, okay, well that's why I'm so tired. But the truth is that I was actually still dealing with anxiety. And so one of the big misunderstandings is that a lot of individuals struggling with anxiety think the same thing. They think anxiety is like this thing that creates a lot of energy and you're always alert and you're always hyper aware. And the truth is that that is the case in the beginning. However, if you're struggling with anxiety, if your nervous system is sensitized for an extended period of time, you do become a little bit sluggish. You do get a little bit slow. And so what happens is these individuals often think, well, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not anxiety. You have to understand, anxiety is very great. It's amazing at convincing you it's anything but anxiety. And so it's going to make you think, oh, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it is adrenal fatigue. Maybe it is because, you're super tired, and maybe it's some other mental health condition, or maybe you're struggling with something else, and, whatever it is, whatever the story, the narrative is. And so the key here really to understand is that anxiety does create this sluggishness. It does create this tiredness. Now, why does it do that? The truth is that when you're anxious, when you're in this fight or flight response, your body's burning off through extra resources. See, somebody who is not anxious, they're not burning through these resources, but they have these resources kind of in case there's a threat. If something comes out, we have the stress hormones, we have the adrenaline, we have the cortisol, we have the epinephrine, norepinephrine, we have all these things to get us up and ready to go, and we have energy conserved. But when you're struggling with anxiety, your body's burning through that energy because it thinks everything's a threat. And so there's no need to conserve it, use it now. It's almost like this use it or lose it attitude. And what that does is that your body's a little bit more hyperactive. It's burning through more and more resources. And because it's burning through these resources, you get really tired. You can tell, you can feel like your body is just overworked. It's done more, even though you haven't done much. I mean, there was a time where I was agoraphobic and I wasn't doing anything. And those were the days I felt the most tired. And so I was thinking, well, I have no energy. Well, maybe because, it's something else. But the truth was, it was just anxiety. My fight or flight mode was on, and that mode being on for an extended period of time really does slow you down. It kind of batters your mind. You start having concentration issues. You start feeling really exhausted based on small things. And so really the key here, as with any symptom that you're struggling with anxiety, is it is very important to understand the mechanics. It's very important to understand, how does anxiety create these things? See, once you understand how these things work, well, they don't scare you as much. It's kind of like, oh, okay, I see. That's why it's happening. Now, the problem is that it's hard to find the right information versus not. You know, you're probably used to Google searching. You're probably used to going on forums, and you know, individuals on forums, you know, they may have good intentions, but you know, it's very easy for them to give misinformation, especially if you're still struggling with anxiety. You know, I find it very bizarre when people give advice when they're struggling with anxiety to someone else. Usually I would assume people would have to come out of it first before giving advice. But the key here, again, is to really understand the mechanics of anxiety. So if you really want to understand even more, why does anxiety create these things? Why does anxiety create these physical symptoms, these intrusive thoughts, these feelings of unreality, these emotions, this tiredness? Well, what I'll do is I'll put a link down below. This is a link to a report. Essentially what I've done is I've written out step by step, first of all, really how anxiety works, but more importantly, how do you get out of this? Now, this report is absolutely free. Not charging anyone for it. These are 5 steps. There's no 6 steps. There's just 5. So there's nothing I'm holding back. The reason why I've written this is because, well, look, I struggled, and a huge reason for why I struggled was I just didn't know what was happening. And so if I could at least let you know what's happening, I think that will minimize a lot of the suffering, and I think it'll also help you, it'll expedite the recovery journey for you. So the link is down below. This report is the exact same steps that I use for my clients in my private mentorship, and this is for you. So read through it. Read through it again if you need to. Read through it multiple times. Really understand the mechanics here. Really understand the solution, and definitely check that report out. All right, so now that you understand that these feelings of tiredness, this exhaustion, is part of the anxiety, well, the next question you may have is, okay, well, what do I do, Shaan? Do I go out and live? Do I stay at home and catch up on my sleep and then go? Well, the truth is that the best way out, the thing that I tell my clients, now this is dependent based on individual, but the general consensus, the generalized answer here was, you know, you feel the tiredness, but you continue living on your day. And so you may feel a little bit tired, but you continue kind of doing what you need to get done, the chores, you know, working, spending time with your family, you know, having fun with your friends. I remember when I was struggling, I remember just working an 8-hour day seemed like running a marathon. And so there were times where I was going to work and I felt absolutely exhausted, but I still kept going to work. And so the good news from that, ironically, is that as I kind of lived my life, I was building momentum. And from that momentum, I was actually ironically getting energy from it. So you think about energy as being expended. Well, the ironic part about this is that when I was expending energy, I was actually gaining energy from it. So 8 hours of work seemed really monumental, but then all of a sudden it just became a normal day. And ironically, I was actually getting a little bit more energy. So what I would say is the general consensus is really feel the tiredness, but get stuff done. Now, the truth is that the answer to what do you do really requires self-awareness, meaning you have to be self-aware enough to know when you're pushing yourself too far, right? Like, I used to ask myself, well, how would somebody who didn't struggle with anxiety respond? And I would be like, well, they would just go a typical 8-hour day, so I'm gonna do that too. But I didn't jump off a plane. You know, I didn't skydive. You know, I wasn't doing those kinds of things. You know, I knew that was gonna really burn through my body. And so you do need a level of self-awareness here. You wanna push yourself, but not too far. You don't wanna push yourself to the point where it's like, you know, you're doing ridiculous things for, you know, whatever reason. There's a certain level where you know you're tired, but you consciously go a little bit further. But there's also a level where you are tired and you recognize it, and you know, you give yourself a break. You know, you recognize, okay, I've been working a little bit too hard, there's been extra stressors, maybe I should tone it back. A lot of people that fall into the cycle is because they didn't listen to that. They thought, you know, their energy was infinite and they could just keep going, and then they ended up falling and crashing and burning. And so you want to be really self-aware here. And so I would say go a little bit further, but be mindful of taking it too far. Now, I know these are general answers and you're probably wondering specifically in your situation. Well, if you really want to know, if you really want like specific feedback on your recovery, and if you really want to know how for you to really get out, the best way to really do that is by joining my private mentorship. In this group, I'm really helping people fully come out. I'm not interested in making you feel a little bit better. My goal is to get you fully out, get you back to living. And so the best way I found is, the best way I find to get people out is by me just giving specific individual guidance, giving individual attention to individuals and really helping them get out. And so if that's you, if you're tired of trying to look through these YouTube videos and Google searching and going on these forums and just really want to focus on recovery, then hit the link down below. This link is to my private mentorship. My mentorship isn't for everybody. We screen very hard. We're very particular on who we work with. And so when you hit the link, there's going to be a short video. After the video, there'll be an application page. You fill out that application. My team and I will look at your application and see you're a good fit. This team is actually individuals that have also gone through anxiety and have recovered. A lot of them are my clients, actually, who now are also helping other people recover. So it's pretty amazing. It's an incredible community. And so we'll review it. We'll see if you're a good fit. And if you're a good fit, we'll get you in ourselves. And we will personally guide you step by step, and we'll make sure you get out of this once and for all. So click the link down below. I'll see you inside.